So a couple months ago, I was getting pretty bored with my Fujifilm X-T3. I mean, when I got it back in 2019, it was already about a year old, and now in 2021, I felt like, this camera is getting long in the tooth, maybe it's time to replace it. And it's kind of funny how quickly discontentment can set in when A, you're not using the camera, and B, you're watching too many reviews of the latest and greatest cameras. But then I got a gift card from my apartment complex as one of those signing bonuses for signing for another year, which is kind of ridiculous because you're already paying rent. It's just a little bit off of rent. But I saw that as money to burn and, gas. And so I decided to get myself a new lens. I'd recently seen a review of the 7 Artisans 35mm f0.95 Fuji lens from a photographer by the name of Jonas Rask, Dr. Jonas Rask, who is a fantastic photographer, also a doctor, which is just wild, but his verdict for this lens was largely positive, especially for the price. And so, I thought, I guess I'll give it a shot, see if I can kind of breathe new life into this camera. So that's what I did. So touching on build quality and design, for the price it's fantastic. It's not weather sealed, but it's made out of metal and glass, and it feels very hefty and premium. The dials spin nice and smoothly. It looks really good too. I mean, it kind of looks like a not really, but kind of, I guess. And it really adds to that whole retro vibe with Fujifilm, and so I think it pairs really nicely. Weight-wise, it's just enough where if you take off the lens cap, it will balance with my Fujifilm X-T3 without tipping forward. You pop the lens cap back on, it just tips right forward, which is kind of funny. The one little design issue thing that I had with it as far as the focus dial went is that for some reason it spins past infinity just by 5mm, and it's marked on the actual lens. So if you dial straight to where infinity is marked, you're fine. But it spins past that. So when your eyes up to the viewfinder and you're just trying to grab something really far away, it can be a little bit difficult sometimes when you think you've spun all the way to infinity, like on most other lenses I've used, and it's past there, it's out of focus, so you have to pull it back a little bit. So that's the one little gripe I have. I don't know if this is the case with all of 7 Artisans lenses, if this is just kind of like a one-off thing. Maybe it's just my lens, I don't really know. I wasn't really able to get it replaced because I was out of the warranty by the time I actually kind of noticed this. So it's a tiny gripe, but is one thing that I did want to mention. So day-to-day usage is pretty normal, kind of what you'd expect with a manual lens. I mapped one of the function buttons to punch in so that I can quickly check focus, especially when I'm shooting at 0.95, and that's kind of solved a lot of the issues I had as far as trying to make sure that what I want in focus is in focus, because the focus peaking built into Fujifilm is fine, but it's kind of nice to be able to spot check and get that critical focus, which is fantastic. I've heard the focus throw is a little bit less than most lenses. I don't really know exactly, but if that's the case, that makes it really easy to just kind of do it with one hand and not really have to worry about it. Again, the issue with the infinity focus thing is a thing, and you kind of have to just compensate for that and be aware that you don't spin all the way to the end for far away objects. So that's just one little thing. The other thing is that the lens metadata, like the EXIF data, is often, I think, always wrong with the focal length and the f-stop. So for some reason, it thinks it's a 32mm lens at f1.0. Don't know why that is. You could probably change it. I don't really care. When I upload to Glass, it's always the wrong information, but I personally don't care. But if that is an issue for you, maybe they can flash the firmware. I don't really know how this lens works or how lenses work with transferring metadata, but that is one little issue I noticed. Other than that, it is fantastic. Let's take a look at some samples. I think this lens looks fantastic for the price. I really appreciate that heightened level of separation that you get with the 0.95 aperture. I mean, it is quite wild. You step, 10, 15 feet away and take a picture of someone, and there's just this extra level of separation. They just kind of pop out of the image, which is just really, really cool. And I think it's really fun to have this kind of lens on the camera. And it's pretty sharp at 0.95 too, which is not always the case. And so I think that's fantastic. I would compare this against the Mitacon lens, the similar 35mm f0.95. I don't own it, and it is a lot more expensive. So I think the chromatic aberration is a bit better controlled on that lens than it is on this lens, which you do see instances of that here and there. But overall, I think this lens is an absolutely worthwhile purchase. So I don't want to say buy this lens or don't buy this lens, because I think it's very dependent on your shooting style. Manual focus lenses have very little margin for error, especially at 0.95. However, I think this lens works fantastic at 0.95, and it isn't this blurry, globby mess. I mean, focus-wise it can be, but as far as sharpness and things like that, it's very well controlled. It does have a bit of chromatic aberration at 0.95, but it's not so much that I feel like I need to stop down all the time. I'm often shooting at 0.95, and I don't really mind. Close up, you know, within 6 feet, I definitely don't shoot at 0.95, or I try not to because of how insanely shallow it is. But stepping back a little bit, you're able to get some shots that are really fantastic at 0.95. So I would recommend this lens. I think it's a fantastic purchase. I'm glad I bought it. I've been shooting with it pretty much every day. I bring it to school, and it's just this fun little camera to play around with. The Fujifilm camera body itself is so small, and with this lens, it just looks great. So yeah, that's kind of my experience, and I hope that was helpful. I know it's been a while since I made a YouTube video. For those who have stuck around to the end here, life is crazy, but I'm trying to make an effort to make a little bit more content. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you around next time.
Is that street legal? I guess so.
I don't know. I guess.
He's literally in the middle of the street.